Welcome to the Jewish People's Podcast by JPPI. I'm Yaakov Katz. On Wednesday, a shocking report came out in the media. Since October 7th, the American Jewish community has recorded over 10,000 anti-Semitic attacks. Of the incidents, 8,015 involved verbal or written harassment. Another 1,800 cases were vandalism, and over 150 were physical assaults. At least 1,200 incidents occurred on university campuses, while more than 2,000 targeted Jewish institutions like synagogues and community centers. There were another 3,000 incidents that took place during anti-Israel rallies, many of which included explicit support for terrorist organizations. And even as the war enters now its 16th month, the situation has not gotten better. Many Jews throughout the United States still feel unsafe. And for many, while October 7th compelled them to become more engaged, to get more involved in Jewish and Israel life, there are those who see anti-Semitism and fear what it means, what are the consequences, and move away from their Jewish identity and Jewish engagement. On today's show, we dive into these issues. I speak with Eric Fingerhut, President and CEO of the Jewish Federations of North America. He was previously President and CEO of Hillel International. He served in the Ohio State Senate, as well as in Congress. Eric talks about what can be done to combat anti-Semitism, where he sees some success, what's happening to Jewish identity across the United States, how resilient he sees the Israel-Diaspora alliance, as well as about the $850 million plus that Jewish federations have allocated or raised and given a lot of it away already to over 500 NGOs and different groups all across Israel ever since October 7th. Have a listen. So I will have done an introduction already, so we can just jump straight into it. Eric, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're talking on a day when I saw an article earlier about how there is a historic record of anti-Semitic incidents in the United States. 10,000 anti-Semitic incidents have been recorded since the Hamas assault on Israel on October 7th. And I know that this is obviously something that is very much at the top of your mind, very much something that you are dealing with through the Jewish Federations of North America. I mean, this is a horrific number, right? That I think that we've heard a huge percentage climb, this, that, but 10,000 incidents is massive. I mean, what does this mean? Why is this happening? And what can be done?
Well, it is horrific, and you're quite right, and it's shocking, and certainly people like me who've been involved in government and politics and civil society in America, not just as a Jewish communal leader but broadly, are just shocked to see what the spread of this kind of activity and behavior. Look, the most. I also want to say that anti-Semitism is a big enough problem that there's many organizations have a role to play in dealing with this, and it's of course important that everybody focus in on the thing that they contribute the most to to addressing. And for us at the Jewish Federation system, which, as you know, is 146 federations, we are the central organizing body of Jewish life in each community, and really locally rooted with local leadership and local responsibility. So for us, the question is, how do we protect the safety and security of the Jewish community? And that really, the rise of these anti-Semitic incidents is most challenging to us because it, first of all, threatens the physical security of the Jewish community, and then secondly, of course, it harms the educational and economic employment opportunities. But we start with the physical security, and we have taken a very aggressive approach long before October 7th, long before this recent rise, really back. It started probably after 9/11 when we realized that those who attacked the Twin Towers and the Pentagon were certainly aiming to attack Jews as well. We started building a security infrastructure for every community. We started the Secure Community Network, but it really was put on steroids after the shootings at the Tree of Life Synagogue building in Pittsburgh, which was October 27th, 2018. In fact, I personally came to this job in September 2019, and one of my high priorities in both, in choosing to take on this role was knowing that we had to build a really robust security infrastructure for the Jewish community. Maybe in 2018, maybe we had a half a dozen, maybe a dozen at the most communities that had some formal security infrastructure for the entire community. We set out, we began a campaign, a program we called Live Secure, the aim of which was to establish in every single community under the umbrella of the Federation a professionally run community security initiative that had under its umbrella every single Jewish institution, every synagogue, every JCC, every human services agency, and then that would also in turn be in touch with the local law enforcement, et cetera, so that we have a comprehensive security program for each synagogue, for each federation. We do this in partnership with the Secure Community Network, which provides training and expertise, et cetera, to every community, planning support. We now have over 120 full-time professionally community security programs up and running with directors, full-time directors. So, for example, on New Year's Eve, New Year's morning, early morning, when the terrible attack occurred in New Orleans, our security director in New Orleans, working for the Federation, immediately activated all of the alarms and alerts throughout the Jewish community, and of course immediately interacted with the local police to make sure that all preventive measures were in place in case that this was going to be a broader incident. So physical security is one, and we know it drives from anti-Semitism. I mean, the attacker in New Orleans was activated in a Houston mosque, which has a reputation for egregious anti-Semitism and is could well be activating other people. So part of this anti-Semitism that's in this report is a direct physical threat to which we're responding. But then secondly, as I said, it has impacts on. We've experienced it in healthcare with patients not being treated appropriately if because they were Jewish or medical professionals being discriminated against. Certainly, we've seen it. We know the university situation is well known to your listeners. We've seen it in primary and secondary education as well. We've seen it in all sorts of settings. So the response to that, which is also local, is the direct engagement with the civic society of the communities in which we live. Ultimately, we're a minority. We have to be engaged with the city councils, with the mayors, with the state legislators, with the county officials, with the school boards, with the local university. And look, I'll give you one example. When in Rochester, New York, at the University of Rochester, the SJP chapter put up wanted posters. You know what I'm talking about? They wanted for genocide, a picture. And in the picture was the Hillel director and Jewish professors who'd been outspoken. Well, who was it that was going to, that immediately was in a position to be able to call the president of the university because they had the phone number in the relationship and they had the phone number on their cell phone? Who immediately could call the mayor? Who immediately could insist that the local prosecutors and police take the necessary action? That was the work of our local federation in Rochester, led by our experienced team there, because they had those relationships. So for us, this is about making sure that our local systems are up to the level they need to be at today to deal with this extraordinary threat and be able to respond.
I want to dive in a bit to specifically college campuses, but before I go there, I do want to ask, because I know that you guys do constant studies and polling and surveying of how all of this impacts Jewish identity, how it impacts Jewish life, and there's a lot of different verticals, I would say, or vectors that we're seeing today. More people, it's October 7th, you have the phenomenon of the October 8th Jew, people who it has sparked something inside them. They now feel this being compelled to be more engaged, more involved. Yeah, I mean, it's great. But you also, I would assume, that when you have a wanted poster like that, you probably have a parent somewhere who says to his or her kid, you know what, play down being Jewish when you go to school, right? Don't talk about it. You're just, you might have a name that's not necessarily Fingerhut or Katz, so you can get away with assuming with people not knowing that you're Jewish. I mean, this has got to be pulling people in different directions.
So first of all, I just want to verify that what you're saying is true. Secondly, look, there's very clear evidence on the question you're asking. It's actually not one that we don't know the answer. The answer is that we have to make sure people are safe that it's safe to participate in Jewish life, and they have to know that we have those safety measures in place. If we do both of those things, then people will not respond as as the premise of your question is by saying don't go. They'll feel safe because we were successful in addressing those wanted posters immediately and visibly. And there was action taken because when they go to Jewish institutions now, they see security and they know the security's there. It's a little bit counterintuitive. You think, oh, if I see security, I think there's a problem. But actually, the opposite is the case. I see security, it makes me know that we're being proactive and people are being safe. So we have to both. We have to respond quickly to these incidents. We have to make our security and our defense of the Jewish community visible and known and effective. And then people will feel safe and will continue to participate in Jewish life. If we don't do that, then we're at risk of them having the response that you suggested.
So going back then to the anti-Semitism for a moment, college campuses. I mean, we're like a semester in. There's now break. Schools are coming back in the next few days. I mean, how things do seem, at least from a distance here from Israel, they seem to be a little more mellow than they were, of course, last year. We're not seeing tent encampments. We're not seeing the same drama that we saw last year. But I know there's a lot of vigilance on that front.
Yeah. Look, I think this is an example of what I just said. I think anybody in a position like mine has to acknowledge openly that we were taken by surprise by some of the tactics of the anti-Israel forces, the pro-Hamas forces. And how organized they were and how quickly they spread their tactics to many campuses. And so we didn't have as quickly as needed an organized response. But we did regroup quickly, all of the organizations working together. I don't mean just federations. We all worked very closely together on this. And it became very clear that in most cases of the encampments, et cetera, that these people were violating existing policies of the university as applied to student behavior and as applied to other those and that as to the extent that it was people coming from off campus, they were also violating laws and policies, and that what was happening was universities were not enforcing these policies. Local law enforcement was not arresting and prosecuting, and over the summer, all the major Jewish organizations, obviously the Federation System, Hillel, which of course works on campus, ADL, AJC, Conference of Presidents, I may be missing others. We jointly wrote to all universities and we listed exactly what we expected them to do, which included the enforcement. And as I previously mentioned, our security programs in every community now, we're in touch with law enforcement about what our expectations were of them with regard to just enforcing the law. And Yaakov, I believe that that's had a very significant impact. And even if you go back to last year, those places that didn't have the incidents were places that quickly and forcefully enforced their policies. Those that had the incidents were those that did not. And by this fall now, we have prevailed on, insisted on most universities to follow their policies, and that's why you're seeing a better situation. Unfortunately, it doesn't resolve the problem of the basic anti-Semitism that many of these students are still experiencing in classes and such. That we still have much work to do. But in terms of the encampments and the violence they experienced and the threats they experienced, that has gotten better.
I mean, I will go back though to the question though about the Jewish engagement in Jewish life, because at the end, I mean, like when you look at it from Israel, for example, one of the things that Israel is always trying to foster, and I know that you're always talking with the Israeli government, the diaspora ministry, different projects, and back in your old hat as the head of Hillel, you also spearheaded the partnership with at the time with the diaspora affairs ministry. I mean, there is a lot of concern, at least from Israel, on the Israeli perspective. And by the way, I actually saw an interesting poll recently. I'd love to get your take on this as well. That Israelis post October 7th are looking at investment of Israeli government money in the diaspora as something that they should not be spending as much, that they should actually spend less. They shouldn't spend as much as they have been spending. Maybe largely because of the issues that we're having here with the economy. So maybe you refer to that, but I do. I mean, Israelis kind of look at what's happening there, and they are very concerned that Jews are going to be lost. I mean, what do you say to the Israelis and Israeli leadership that you're meeting with that try to ease that concern?
Well, it's interesting. I was three-quarters of the way through your question, nodding, and then the way you finished it. Um, I think Israelis should be concerned about what's happening in America because we're concerned. And by the way, Europe is worse, right? So they should be concerned about the overall threat level to Jews around the world. And I'm a believer. This is one of the reasons why the state of Israel exists, to be the home of the Jewish people and to and to help protect and defend the Jewish people, not just in Israel but around the world. And so they should be concerned and they should be alarmed. And we do meet regularly, as you suggest, with the diaspora ministry. We participated just the day before of this recording at a hearing at the Knesset, together with ADL and others, to discuss these issues with members of the Knesset. We do it as we said, with the diaspora ministry. So I think they're right to be concerned. I don't think the concern is that they're losing us. That I actually think, as we referenced earlier in this conversation, actually the opposite is the case, right? That there's a surge in engagement in Jewish life, and certainly all the evidence of support for Israel over the last year. Really, the extraordinary, overwhelming majorities of Jews supporting Israel, including younger Jews in slightly lesser numbers, but still a majority. So I don't think they have to worry about losing us. I think they do need to help us fight back. But that doesn't all have to just be spending money. I mean, look, we understand that there's huge needs here in Israel. The defense, the defense budget, of course, is a massive need, as well as all the social social impacts and the trauma and mental health. And of course, we're trying philanthropically from America to help Israel and Israelis as much as we possibly can. So we understand the money question if it comes out of the competing needs. But if it comes out of that Israelis have less of a role to play in helping support and defend Jews around the world, that I would take issue with. I don't hear that in my conversations with Israelis. I hear them wanting and willing to help us and to stand up. But I think they do have that responsibility, and we engage with them on it all the time.
Well, I mean, definitely you guys stepped up after October 7th. What is the campaign at now from what was raised by JFNA or all the federations since October 7th?
It's all reported and publicly available. So we gave to over 500 different NGOs, and every single grant is documented.
What is this $863 million that JFNA has raised? Where has it gone? Can you give some examples? I know that mental health is one of them that was done. Like what else have you put a big focus on?
So we
Eric's here, Neve.
Right, Neve. I think
No, Eric's here.
I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Let
me ask again.
Go ahead. Ask again.
So I know that JFNA has done a huge job, great job raising a lot of money and stepping up for Israel. $863 million as we're speaking, at least, if not more by now, that has been raised Jewish communities across America for Israel in this post-October 7th relief program. So talk to us of where this money has gone. And I mean, to me, it's inspiring. I mean, it's amazing how much money that people really have put forward as a way to kind of help Israel. But what has been the main focus of where that money's going?
Yeah, so first of all, it really is inspiring, and I have the privilege of visiting many of our communities, 146 federations collectively raising this 864 million and rising from really hundreds of thousands of different donors. It's heartwarming. It's a testament to caring for our brothers and sisters in Israel. Look, there were probably four big categories. At the beginning, what we call lifeline services, which is maybe another way of saying, just basic emergency help, right? People were relocating and the government helped some, but there were many, many more needs. Obviously, families with soldiers who were, off fighting, et cetera. So lifeline services, as you mentioned, mental health, the whole medical trauma, work it is a major area. We've helped seed 16 trauma centers around the country where where people can go to get the kind of help, not inpatient care, but also not just go online and see a psychiatrist, but really be able to get a little more help and support, economic relief. Many businesses, as you know, have failed or are struggling, and there's a whole variety of loan funds that we've been supporting for small businesses, especially, and then as we start to broaden the lens to what are some of the major rebuilding projects that are needed as people start going back to their community. So those are the big categories. But if you look over time, in the early months, it was very much the emergency lifeline services. Then that starts to decline, and then the healthcare trauma starts to go up. The economic relief starts to go up. But I also want to say to your listeners, all of this is available through our website, and we've documented every single grant. Over 500 different NGOs have received support. I really, there's almost no sector of Israeli society that didn't receive some help. And I think the thing I'm proud of besides the amount and the breadth of what we were able to do is that it was quick, right? We got the money quickly. It wasn't bureaucratic. We didn't say, you got to write 15 proposals and go to 6 dinners, and we tried to very quickly respond and get the funds where they needed. The other thing I want to say about the money having been raised from across 146 federations is the knowledge of where the need isn't just in one central office, with my colleagues at the umbrella of these federations, but each federation over the years has developed partnership relationships, sister city relationships, has developed special focuses on certain areas of Israel and certain areas of populations. So they had knowledge of their particular partners and organizational partners, and were able to help move money quickly to the right places.
So, before we wrap up, I know that you are, or JFNA is now in the process of opening up a new office in DC, and you recently held the GA, your General Assembly was also there. Is this more of maybe a push into kind of, political governmental relations? Like what should we be reading into this, if at all?
Well, no, I think you should be reading. First of all, we've always the engagement with government, public affairs, has always been an important responsibility of federations. I mentioned it earlier in this podcast with respect to the work of local federations working with their local governments, and we through the Jewish Federations of North America, Washington have always aggregated all of that and brought forward national issues. So, for example, on security, in addition to all the private philanthropy, fundraising from federations that's paying for the local security programs, we also helped develop, in partnership with Congress over the years, something called the Nonprofit Security Grant Program, which provides grants to synagogues, churches, nonprofits, et cetera, to help harden buildings, cameras and hardening doors and barriers and such. And we, through our advocacy, that program is now about $500 million a year. Now, that's not just for the Jewish community, but it significantly benefits us. So that kind of advocacy. But the answer is yes. We feel the need to increase our presence in Washington for the national government on issues like anti-Semitism and security, but also there are other education and human service related issues, health and mental health related issues, and I also want to say that Washington, is a place where you see the National Governors Association, governors come and meet there, and the the Attorneys General associations have offices there, and many of the important representatives of the other religious and ethnic communities are there. So there's much work for us to do to protect the interests of the Jewish community, the safety and security of the Jewish community, and continue to help the communities flourish.
Okay, Eric, thank you so much for being with us. Thanks for joining the show. We appreciate it.
Yaakov, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. You can find us, as always, where podcasts can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, of course, YouTube, as well as the website of Times of Israel. We'll be back on Monday. In the meantime,